Welcome to Authentic Energy, a podcast dedicated to getting to the bottom of what it means to be your true, authentic self at work. I am your host, Wendy Brand. Let's take this learning journey together as I meet with guests weekly. Whether you are a leader or individual contributor, a teacher or a nurse, we'll share conversations and stories that highlight meaningful connections, self-awareness, a sense of belonging, and all the components necessary to create a workplace where you can show up in your authentic energy. This episode wraps up the Sow Series with the final step in our change process to make the decision to become who you want to be. We first looked at the awareness of change in our Seed series. Then, as we entered the Sow series, we found our desire to change by looking at opportunities and risks, then focused on our knowledge and ability and articulating our uniqueness. At the end of it all, it's about making the decision to be who you want to become. What does your future self act like? What are the attributes of that person that you want to become? And start living like him or her. Decide to be who you want to become. Before we jump into the episode, I want to let you know about a free workshop that I'm hosting with a coaching colleague of mine, Jeshanna Forrester. In December, we will be facilitating a free online goal and mindset workshop to get you ready for the new year. As you'll learn in this episode, it's not just about setting goals and the things you do. It's also about who you want to be, which often requires a shift in mindset. That's why the workshop is not just a goal-setting workshop, but also a mind-setting workshop. I'll put the link to sign up in the show notes, so please check it out and share it with a friend if you know someone else that may want to join you. But for now, here is our final episode of the Sow series. Welcome back to Authentic Energy, Whitney. It's our final episode of the Sow series.
I can't believe it's gone so fast.
I know. Well, I'm excited about the conversation today because this really is just bringing it all together, putting a nice bow on it. We've provided some tools for everyone as you're working through change and really implementing change in your life. We've talked about the desire to make the change, assessing the risk, looking for opportunities, really preparing for the change. And now we're talking about deciding.
Yeah. This is the good stuff, right? It's after we've taken all the steps toward change and really kind of breaking that down. I don't know that we always take all the time to take ourselves through a 5-step process to get to decision, but I think it's worth breaking it down for a minute to really anchor on the idea of who you are and the awesomeness that you bring to any given situation.
Yeah. When we talk about who you are and what that means, I listened to a podcast recently that Simon Sinek was a guest on, and he said that when he introduces himself at a party or when he's networking or meeting a new group of people, instead of saying, I'm an author, I'm a TEDx speaker, I'm a, whatever he is doing for a living at the time, he describes himself in one word. And for him, he says, I am an optimist. And what I love about that is it's a description of self that isn't tied to career, being a mother, all of the ways that we describe ourselves. It's really who he's being, not what he's doing.
Wow. So it's an insightful way to observe yourself. It's also difficult to do, right? I am so used to, especially as somebody who worked at a corporate life for so long, I typically say, hi, I'm Whitney and I work at X. So it's really difficult to kind of untether yourself. Or if I'm at a school event, hi, I'm Whitney and I'm so-and-so's mom. You identify yourself with the activity or the role that you're playing. What's remarkable about Simon Sinek's posturing when he says, I'm an optimist, is that it doesn't matter what he's doing, that no matter what he chooses to do, whether that's go to a soccer game or work at a company or coach people or do a speaking engagement or cook dinner. I think in all of those situations, he is an optimist. And that's what's required of him in order to do those things authentically in a way that makes him love the work that he's doing. So who he's being is more important than what he's doing. And I think what's ironic about that is like our entire series. I'm so glad you brought it up, because our entire series is, what are you doing? And I think when you come to the point of decision, the reality is you've already done it. You've done every blessed thing you can do. You've called your friends, you've done internal analysis, you've done, all the homework to rewrite your resumes or put up your dating profiles or take your cooking class or whatever it is that you needed to do. You've done. You're here. You've done it. Congratulations, you're here. Who are you being? Who you're being is best observed by your behaviors. Being able to, in the moment, understand that you entered the scenario with a smile, that you were curious about a person and not judgmental, that you were optimistic about the outcome of something instead of pessimistic or, knowing. Sometimes we just know it's going to happen that way.
Yeah.
So being able to create that awareness for ourselves around who we're being is anchored in behaviors, which is why we observe behaviors to understand who we're being.
Let's talk about I am, right? Let's talk about just saying, just like Simon Sinek says, I'm an optimist. If we were to take that and try that on, and I think if listeners want to try that themselves and just say, even as simple as, instead of saying I am Wendy Brand, because that comes with layers to it, but just saying I am empathetic.
It's a focus on the orientation of the way with which you enter any environment. So I am curious. I am creative. I am compassionate. I think those things are the things I want to embody, and I try to take with me in any situation. If I called my friends last week and they said, well, you're accomplished and you're intense and you're driven, then some of that's really flattering, but does it embody the compassionate, curious, creative that I also feel inside me? And what of those things do I want the outside world to see me embodying? So if the thing I want to go be is a sound bowl therapist, which I just got certified in, I may want those characteristics of compassion and connectedness and curiosity to really come through me. If I'm sitting in an executive role, I also might want those things, but I also might want some of that drive and ambition to come through. So what is it important that I embody or that I internalize and that I push out that people can see when I desire to make a change and go towards something?
Because you're talking about really the essence of you. And so it doesn't matter if you're a sound bowl therapist or if you're a CEO, or you can still be curious and creative. And so that's how we show up authentically in the world, no matter what role we play, is being true to those things. And it really goes back to what we talked about in the Seed series with your values and really understanding what's important to you so that you can show up authentically. And I think some of the language that we're using is very similar. Is optimism a value? Is that important to me? And if it is, all you have to do is make sure that you're showing up as that in whatever you do. And so if we think of an example, just to kind of put it into action, I'm thinking of, we can even go back to an example I've used before, where I want to be the type of person that gets blank done. Like I am that type of person, but I want to do that in a healthy way where I'm not, exhausting myself and burning out. And so some of the changes I've made in my life are that I'm finding more balance and doing work that I enjoy. And I said I wanted to start waking up at 5 a.m. because in my mind, the type of person that really gets it all done, she gets up at 5 a.m. She does her meditation, she works out, and then she gets to work after she's made that time for herself. So the behaviors that it takes to become that type of person, there's some action in there that needs to happen, right? I need to get up at 5 a.m. I need to make sure that I'm doing some of the things that I need to do. Like I said, I'm going to meditate. I said, I'm going to work out. Like those are doing things. But first I put in my mindset that I am the type of person that gets up at 5 a.m. and has a kick-ass day because I get those things done. It's things that I choose to do. So I'm going first, right? I'm not doing those things yet, but I make the decision first that this is the person that I'm going to be.
I love that you say that, like, I'm going first. So my behaviors will follow. I'm going first. Very powerful. Can I reflect back what I heard from you?
Yes. Yeah.
So when you talked about, I'm going to call what you just said a balanced achiever. So you're being a balanced achiever. And it's interesting when you talked about that, there was joy behind the action. And so if I think about you in a past life, it was probably a little bit more maniacal. So I was a maniacal achiever, which creates that imbalance. So when you add balance, what do you really mean by that? What are you being? You're being joyful. You're being excited about the opportunity, not threatened, or if I don't get this done, it's going to, if I don't get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm a loser. It's not that. It's that I am the person who gets up at 5 o'clock because I like it. I like how I feel. I like how I behave. I like what it does to my mental state. I enjoy watching the sunrise. So it's this joy that comes with it, not just the pattern or the behaviors of it. So it's who are you being as a balanced achiever or as an achiever? So you can still be an achiever.
Yes.
It's just who are you being?
Exactly. That's exactly right. And it really was changing that mindset that then the action came.
I go first and my actions follow. That's what deciding's about. And if it feels overwhelming, because sometimes you get some feedback and it feels like there's a big gap between how people see you and how you see yourself. What's one step that you could take toward being that? So it may not be like an overnight, like you wake up and people think that you've lost your mind, you've been possessed by something, but rather what's one step that takes you on that evolution to who you want to be and take that step?
We called this episode Decide, right? It's the end of the path. We've talked about different things you can do to change. And now we're saying it's time.
Yeah.
It's time to make that change. It's time to become who you want to be.
Well, I think you have all the tools, you have all the information. And so in order to become who you need to become, you now also have the awareness. The distance between the feedback you got after the last episode and where you want to be is the gap you have to close. And there's nothing else to do. You just have to start to be. Well, we still have homework.
You love homework.
I love homework. This is our I Am project, right?
Yes. Tell us about the I Am project.
And it's our final episode. So this is purely self-reflection. Taking that moment to decide who you're going to be during an introduction, stripping back what you were saying, I am Wendy Brand and I am a podcaster, to I am curious. So it's what are you being, not what are you doing?
This is your moment. This is your time to make that decision. You've worked hard, you've done all the things, as you said, and this is really the opportunity to take control of who you want to be and be that person today, this second. You just make the decision and you can just be who you want to be.
Absolutely.
So a little tough love for the listeners. If you are trying to accomplish something, you've got your goals in place, you've, set your intention. All you have to do is change your mindset and be who you want to become. You go first.
Yeah. Can I be even a little harsher?
Yes.
It's not about what somebody isn't giving you. It's about what you're missing. Who
Yes.
aren't you being?
Yes.
You got this.
Thank you so much for listening today. Here are my takeaways. Number 1, try introducing yourself without describing what you do for a living. Lose the identification of a role you're playing and connect with your values to describe yourself. Number 2, who you're being is more important than what you are doing. Who you are being is best observed by your behaviors. Number 3, ask yourself, what do I want the outside world to see me embodying? What characteristics do I want people to see? We can show up authentically in the world regardless of what we do by aligning to our values. Number 4, starting first with a mindset shift, going first with your decision, and then your behaviors will follow. I go first and then my actions follow. That's what deciding is about. Number 5, the distance between the feedback that you've received and who you want to be may be different. But once you have the awareness, you can make up the difference in that gap to become the person you want to be. And finally, the last homework is really just some self-reflection. Decide who you are being, not based on what you do, and try using that in an I am statement to introduce yourself, similar to the Simon Sinek example. You can do it. You've got this. Thank you so much for joining us again this week and following along in this series. If you've enjoyed listening, please subscribe to this podcast on the platform of your choice, whether it's Apple, Spotify, or one of the many others, and then give us a review. We'd love to know how we're doing. Thank you so much.